I think we waste so much time and so much money on some of these brightening products and brightening ingredients that are helpful, right? They're going to help even your skin tone. But when you have true hyperpigmentation, maybe you have hyperpigmentation left over from acne marks, or you have melasma, that needs to be treated. And the way we treat hyperpigmentation truly is with hydroquinone. Brooke Devard and I met in Los Angeles at a clearance event, and I was immediately drawn to her. A fellow beauty podcaster, it was apparent she was incredibly knowledgeable about the beauty space. Brooke has worked in marketing and social media at global leading brands such as Ralph Lauren, Instagram, and Viacom. And if you've ever listened to her podcast, Naked Beauty, you'll know that she has interviewed some of the biggest names in the industry. Today is a combo between the two of us, covering some of Brooke's most burning skincare questions and my own questions about Brooke's holy grail products and treatments. Tune in for one of my favorite conversations to date.
Amy, I'm so excited to have this conversation because I feel like as a skincare nerd, as a skincare enthusiast, it's like you can only talk about certain things with people that also get it. You know what I mean?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean.
Dermatologists, they know everything about skin, but they don't necessarily buy all of the products. Like I know you also are really deep into the product game. You're seeing what the brands are doing. So it's like someone could be an amazing seamstress, but they don't know about Tom Ford's latest collection. But you know both. You know what's on the skincare market, but then you also have the dermatology background to back it up. So that's why I'm really excited for this conversation.
I love that you know that, because most people actually don't. Most people just assume that if you're a dermatology provider, you know everything there is to know about skincare. But as dermatology providers, our education is in the science of skin, not really skincare, right? We learn about ingredients that are proven to treat acne and things like that, but the rest of it, we are not given any education on. So this is all based on our own passions. We go out and learn about it, aside from what we're trained on.
Yes. And I love just how passionate you are about trying products and also just educating people on what you should pay attention to and what is BS that we can ignore. And there's so much BS to ignore. But Amy, we met a few months ago. It was a beautiful, beautiful event in Beverly Hills at this like gorgeous, what was it? It was like a converted garden that Clinique rented
huge
out.
estate. It was gorgeous.
It was gorgeous. But I got very excited because they were like, we have an expert here. And I'm like, oh, I love an expert in the mix to talk about this, moisturizing cream that they were launching. And then we just started chatting in between presentations. And then you shared that you were a podcaster. So I was like, we have to do something together.
Yes, I'm so glad we are. This is so fun. And then I've since found your podcast and I'm hooked. I love everything about your story, your vibe, everything. So I'm excited to talk.
Thank you. And I feel like, people that are into skincare podcasts and beauty conversations, it's like a very unique group of people that we are serving. And I feel like because we see so much on TikTok, on Instagram, in magazines, it's very hard to know what to trust when it comes to what skincare to invest in, what treatments to invest in. So I feel like there's something really unique, and tell me if you found the same about podcasting specifically, that allows us to like go deep in a way where people trust it. Because it's like we have no agenda here. We're just having a conversation about our experiences.
Yes, exactly. And that's one of the main reasons I actually started my podcast, because I felt like I really couldn't educate or chat about ingredients or products in the way I wanted to in a 60-second video. So I wanted a space, and I love YouTube. I'm a YouTube consumer, but for me, like I wanted a space where I could just listen to other experts come on my show or chat about something. I love podcasts, so it's just a really easy, digestible way to get your information.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start with something that's not on my list, but I grabbed my little Stanley cup before we started recording because, I'm always hydrating.
Yes.
And I sipped my straw, and a friend of mine, actually, my trainer was like, don't you worry about wrinkles around your mouth drinking from that straw every day? And I'm like, I didn't before. Should I? Is this something that has come up in your practice that you have heard about?
Absolutely. I've actually done a couple of videos on this. So we used to back in the day call them smokers lines, but now most people don't smoke anymore. So we also call them barcode lines because they literally look like barcodes above the upper lip, and they happen from repetitive pursing of the lips. So you'll notice them sometimes, like we see them in a lot of French speakers because in their language, it just so happens that they make that motion a lot with their mouth. We see it in people who drink through straws repeatedly. And then, some people just speak that way where they're kind of, the way they pronounce their words, they're kind of pursing their lips more. And we definitely do see these lines more often in people who drink from Stanley's or anything with a straw every
No.
day long. I
Oh my
know.
gosh. The
Yes.
smokers lines now Stanley Cup line. So this is a
Yes, that's
real
literally what I've
thing.
said in my videos. It's so funny. But yeah, unfortunately, anything that causes repetitive movement of that muscle is going to cause those lines. The things you can do to kind of help them are using ingredients that are going to reinforce collagen production, like retinoids. Use your sunscreen because that's going to help with any collagen that's going to be degraded in that area. But the best thing to do is, of course, stop it. You can do Botox above the upper lip. But then it's going to be hard for you to actually drink from the straw because then you can't purse the lips.
Okay, so Amy, do you not drink from straws in your
No, I
personal
don't.
life?
I
You
don't.
don't.
Only when I drink iced coffees, which is maybe like once or twice a week. And I try to like kind of put it to the side, like I wish I had a straw to show you, but I don't have a straw. But I kind of put it to the side of my mouth so that I'm not pursing.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm so excited to learn what else I'm doing wrong in my life throughout this hour we have together. So the fear of the straw is a very real thing. Tell us a little bit about where you practice dermatology and like what your background has been to date, because I know you've been studying it and you're also like in active practice now.
Yeah, so I practice in Miami, Florida at the Bauman Cosmetic and Research Institute. So it's this huge, beautiful center. We do cosmetics. We also do some general dermatology. And then the other side is actually a research center where we do FDA trials for certain topical medications, but also for a lot of the injectables that you've seen, like a lot of the new fillers, the new toxins. We've done a lot of the FDA trials for those, which is really exciting. We get to kind of play with things before they're actually launched here in the US. But my career started as a PA in, gosh, when did I start? I want to say I graduated in 2016 or end of 2015, and I actually started my career as a critical care PA, which I always knew I wanted to be in dermatology. That was always the goal. I did my clinical rotations, my elective rotations in dermatology in school, but I kind of wanted to cement some of the basic medical knowledge first. So I went into critical care. I worked in critical care for 2 years, and then this position opened up, and someone actually called me and said, Bauman is hiring, you have to go. And I wasn't even really ready to leave my ICU job. I wanted to do it for a few more years before I switched, but it was like a dream job I couldn't pass up. So here I am, and I'm still there. I love working with Dr. Bauman. If you've never heard of her, she's incredible. She has a company called Skin Type Solutions, and she is one of the first cosmetic dermatologists who started to educate on cosmeceuticals, which are skincare ingredients. She's written textbooks on skincare ingredients. Like, this wasn't really a field of study before her. So I'm very lucky to have been trained under her.
That's incredible. And also, I think being in Miami, like Los Angeles, it is a place where people are very aesthetics driven. Everyone wants to look like their best self. Everyone who probably comes in says, I want to look younger, more youthful, more radiant, all of these words. So you probably also get a lot of exposure into what treatments, cosmetic or otherwise, make us look our best.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun to play around and to see what works best for certain people, because you start to have a pattern of patients right after doing this for so long, and you start to be able to like, oh, this type of patient does really well with this treatment, or this type of patient does really well with this treatment. But it's interesting, and you have to tell me if you see this more in LA, but I used to always have people who come in, patients who came in, and they were showing me pictures of celebrities. Like, I love her lips, I love her jawline, I love her cheeks. But now they're coming in showing me pictures of themselves when they were younger. And I love that shift. I think it's so important that we're not trying to look like someone else. We're just trying to restore our own youth and look our best. Aging is a privilege. I always have to say that because I understand why people get upset at the anti-aging industry. It's a privilege. We all want to age, right? We don't want the alternative. But it's just about aging gracefully and in a way that makes us feel the best for ourselves. So I'm curious to hear in LA, like, what is the vibe there? Do you feel like kind of the chase of these like intensive cosmetic treatments, especially in young people, is starting to die down a little bit?
So I have come to the realization that a lot of people in LA would rather have a certain aesthetic look to them rather than look old, meaning they don't mind looking as though they've had work done. Like, it's almost like a privilege thing to look like your face is snatched, like you've shown no emotion, like the foreheads don't move, the lips are clearly injected, the chin and the jawline is really sculpted. It's almost like a a look that people want. Like, I don't think they're going for subtle, or at least I would hope not. It's because it's not subtle. Maybe you maybe you do it so often that you lose sight of what subtlety looks like. But I've kind of noticed in LA there is like a look of like having your face done and having the injectables that I think people actually want. Like they prefer that look.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head here that people start to lose a sense of what natural and real looks like because everybody has work done now. And especially on yourself, when you're going, some people are coming in every 3 months, even sooner than that, asking for things to be done to their face. You start to lose a sense of what your face used to look like. And when you're around other people like that in cities like Miami and and LA, that's all you're seeing. So you lose a sense of what natural actually looks like.
Yes. And I mean, the reason why I'm excited to speak about skincare, I think in like treatments and injectables, I know we both did PRP with Dr. Vanessa Lee, which we can talk about as well. I think that those are all great, but I really feel like the foundation, like what I do every morning, every night, like that is what sets you up for success. Like having a good skincare routine, I feel like if you don't have that, it's almost like don't bother with all of this other stuff. Don't you agree?
It's exactly like that. There's no point in doing the rest if you're not going to take care of your skin. Really, there's no point.
There's no point. So I think this is a tough first question for you, but I think it's an important one. There's so many aspects of skincare marketing that are just noisy. So my question to you is, what aspects of skincare marketing should we pay attention to, and what can we ignore?
That's so interesting because it's so layered. So I would say the most important thing when you're looking for ingredients or skincare products is I do like when a company is either created with or from a dermatologist because I think that at least tells you, even if it's just minimal input from the dermatologist, that at least tells you that that company cares about what dermatologists have to say about ingredients and about products. So I think that's a good place to start. I think like
I want to pause you there, Amy, because I feel like that's something that just through my work as a podcaster, I've learned so much more about. Skincare companies will say, oh, this is our like dermatologist in residence, or this is our chief dermatologist. A lot of skincare companies will employ a dermatologist to be a second set of eyes on the formulations. Usually you can find it like on their website. A lot of celebrity skincare lines specifically will have a dermatologist attached because I think they're already fighting with that lack of credibility. But maybe if you could just name a handful of just brands, big or otherwise, that do have dermatologists attached to them so people have a sense of what we're talking about.
Oh, that's tough. Okay, so a few that come to mind. So now there's a lot of dermatologist founded brands too, which is always going to be an amazing place to start. Naturium, they always have derms on their board. The bigger companies, obviously like the L'Oreal companies, they're always going to be consulting with dermatologists because they have the budget, they have the means. Their R&D is just so much on a different level than the rest of these companies. So all those bigger brands that are owned by, those big conglomerates. But also brands like Prequel, which is a really cool brand. That was actually started by a dermatologist. And the reason I love what she's done is because sometimes the skincare experts think they know it all, and I'm coming, like I'm in the world, I understand, but she actually really leans into cosmetic chemists who are also incredible experts, especially when it comes to specific ingredients. So I love that she's a dermatologist. She doesn't need to highlight cosmetic chemists when she's talking about her products, but she does. She highlights all of the cosmetic chemists that are on her board and who are contributing to the formulation. So I think that's a company that's done it really, really well. And it's Dr. Samantha Ellis who owns that company. Who else? I mean, there's so many that I think do a really good job. I work with Bubble. I think they're a great company.
Oh, I haven't heard of that company. Bubble?
It's a really cool company. So their packaging is really bright and fun. Their target audience is kind of younger teens and tweens who need a skincare routine. So there's a lot of focus on blemishes and things like that. But they've done a really good job of having derm providers come in and kind of see the formulations before they come to market. So those are a few that come to the top of my mind, but there's so many now, I think, because of the rise of dermatology on social media, but also because it's so competitive out there and brands are getting so much pushback. They feel like they need something to kind of set them apart from the rest.
Yes. Is there a brand that's really popular that has no dermatology association that you can think of?
That's a really good question. Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I'm sure that there are, but I can't think of one that I'm 100% sure that I can put on blast with 100% certainty.
Okay. What else can we ignore? One of the things that I'm always so curious about, and I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's still important to say, we know that the clean beauty movement was so big 2014, 15, 16, 17. I mean, now we're in 2024. But when packaging says like made with no parabens, no dyes, no sulfate, like all of those things, isn't that sort of a given now, or do you think it's still important for brands to communicate that?
I don't think it's a given that brands aren't using some of these ingredients, but I also don't think it's bad when they do. So there's
Right,
like a
right.
lot
Let's
of
talk
this,
about that.
yeah. So a lot of this fear mongering around some of these ingredients is so unwarranted. And I mean, companies like EWG and things like that, don't get me started. It's not based in real life clinical data on how we use ingredients on our skin. So I don't think we need to fear if there are a paraben in our product, right? Our products need to be preserved. We're starting to see the other end of that right now. I'm sure you've seen some of the news where there's products that are like growing mold or there's bacteria found. And that's what happens when we don't properly preserve our products, which is why we have preservatives in the first place. So I don't think I don't even look at those things. It doesn't even, I don't know if a brand is clean or not when I use it. What does that even mean if it is? I don't look for these kind of call outs on the products I'm using. So in short, I don't think it's important at all if it's there or not. If it's a reputable brand or a reputable product by a reputable brand, they should be following the FDA guidelines when they're creating these formulations. And there's always that argument of, oh, the EU bans so many more ingredients. The EU bans ingredients that would never be used in our products. It's just a different system. It doesn't mean that they're stricter or more careful. The FDA is very careful about how they choose these ingredients and at what concentrations they can be used. So you can like rest assured that your products are safe. I also completely understand from a consumer standpoint that it can be scary and there's so much misinformation out there. So I never want to make somebody feel bad for choosing quote unquote clean. I just don't want anyone to be scared either of their products.
Yes, yes. What about cruelty-free?
That I think is absolutely important if that's something that is important to you. You know, I think that's a decision you have to make for yourself. And I think that I'm sure ways that brands are able to meet those requirements without maybe necessarily, it's a marketing term. So sometimes brands are going to do things just so they can check a box without being maybe the most ethical of brands or the most ethical things to do. So it's just something to keep in mind. But I think it's helpful if it's something that you really feel strongly about. Absolutely.
Sure. One of the things I just learned about recently, I was spending some time in London with the Sable Labs team, and they're B Corp certified, it's really hard to be B Corp certified. I mean, people don't realize how hard it is. You have to show that you're like sustainable through and through. And if you have investors coming in looking at your company, they're like, we do not care about this.
No. Mm-mm.
Cut all the corners you need to cut so you can get the most margin and make the most amount of money. Like we don't need these sustainable ingredients or packaging. But being B Corp certified, I guess I didn't really realize until I did my own research how hard it is to be B Corp certified.
Yeah, it's really admirable. And I actually love Sable Labs. That's one of the things I wanted to ask you about. Like, what are your favorite products from them? Because I think they're like one of the most slept on brands. I love them so much.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I love them so much. I love the Black Seed toner. I think that's like an incredible toner. I love the Castle face mask. And I'm just, the thing that I was talking to Sabrina Elba about, their founder, is A Beauty, which is one of the things she's trying to bring to the forefront, like African ingredients sourced from the continent. We've had J Beauty, K Beauty. We've been inundated with French beauty for like how long? Why don't we have this movement for skincare and beauty brands that come from the continent that have incredible African botanicals? So I love that she's championing that, and I hope that it becomes like very mainstream because I think, Sable Labs is really great. Oh, and their okra serum. Have you tried their new
Yes,
okra
I
serum?
have. I love that one too. I love their
Phenomenal.
moisturizer. It has a bunch of really nice, lightening ingredients. And then I also really love their micellar water with vitamin C. That's like one of my favorite micellar waters because it has all the other ingredients that are so great for you. It's not just a plain micellar water. I love that.
Oh my gosh, yes. We have, at the end of this, I'm going to ask you like the most slept on brands because I feel like that's such a good topic. What should we pay attention to when we are buying skincare?
I always say shop by concern, not by ingredient. I think the rise of this ingredient centric skincare has been really problematic. I see a lot of issues, people coming in with 7 to 10 step routines because they're like, oh, well, I need hyaluronic acid, so I need a hyaluronic acid serum. I need niacinamide, so I'm going to go get a niacinamide serum. So I think instead of focusing on ingredients, focus on concern. And the brands usually are pretty good about communicating what concerns their product is for. And that's how I think it's most efficient to build a routine. I think obviously with SPF, paying attention to the number on the bottle is really important. I'm trying to think what other things I'm like really adamant about looking for.
And then let's talk about the number on the bottle for a little bit, because I feel like there is some confusion about how long the protection lasts for versus how high the protection factor is. So sun protection factor, which is what SPF stands for, whether it's SPF 50, SPF 80, or SPF 30, you still have to reapply it every 80 to 90 minutes, correct?
Correct, exactly. And I always recommend following the instructions on the bottle because some of the more water resistant ones will have a little bit of a longer time frame, but like at minimum 2 hours, and like you said, at maximum that like 80 to 90 minutes. But it doesn't matter if you have on SPF 100, it's not going to last you more than that timing on the bottle. And I would say really, it's best to shoot for every 2 hours because there's so much human error when we're applying sunscreen. It's very unlikely that you applied it in a way, even if it says on the bottle that it's going to last you that full amount.
Yes. One thing that I have decided to ban from my life are the aerosol sunscreens that my husband buys them. I'm like, I didn't even know how they got into my household. But last summer, we went to a pool party. I wore a knee-length skirt, and for the lower part of my body, I just sprayed on the aerosol sunscreen. It looked like I had dark knee-high socks for the entire rest of the summer. Like it took forever to fade. And it was because, if you take a slow motion video of yourself applying an aerosol sunscreen, half of it just flies into the wind. I think if you want to use those, spray it into your hands and then spray it into your body. But I feel like spraying, it's just not an effective way to apply sunscreen.
Absolutely not. I don't think spray sunscreens are effective at all. I've heard from moms where it's like, well, it's the only thing I can do, like give them a spray as they're running away. And I get that. I mean, anything is better than nothing, but in that case, I would just do UPF clothing because it's just not going to be as effective.
Yes. Well, okay, I know you have a 2-year-old, so I have to ask, what is your favorite sunscreen for them?
We kind of rotate. Honestly, I'll buy basically any mineral sunscreen for her. But I really like both Pipette and Tubby Todd because they seem to rub in really well. Pipette especially. We'll do Aveeno or Neutrogena if we're, on vacation. I run into CVS. I'll get the baby version just because those are the mineral versions. But those don't rub in as well. But those are probably our favorites.
We do Aveeno too, and I really like the Sunny Screen from Supergoop, which is like their kids line. Oh, I don't know that one.
I didn't know they had a kids line.
Yes, it's called Sunny Screen. I feel like it's like really like speaking of slept on things, like I feel like no one knows about it because every time I mentioned it to people, they're like, what? Yeah, so it's Supergoop. They have a full kids line for children under 6, and they have this great sunscreen stick from Sunny Screen. They also have lotions, but I really like their products. I think they're really well done. I'm
gonna have to check them out because I love them. Their play sunscreen is one of my favorites for like my body, and then it comes in that huge pump. It's like it's awesome.
We love the pump. Are there specific ingredients that brands talk about that are just buzzy that you think aren't as effective? I know one of the things that came up even when we were together was niacinamide. Every single moisturizer now is talking about how much niacinamide is in it, but then of course that can sensitize your skin. But are there just ingredients that you feel like coming up a lot that aren't as actually effective on their own as they're being claimed to be?
That's a really great question. What comes to mind most is ingredients that are effective but are just so overhyped. And exactly like you mentioned with niacinamide, it's happening with hyaluronic acid too. It's just put in everything. And then we're using too much of it. We're not being intentional with our skincare routines. And it can be problematic not only for the state of our skin, but also, you're kind of pushing out other ingredients that could potentially be more helpful for you. So I think there's like an overstating of some of the benefits of these products, and they're just, companies kind of pull them in and run with it. As far as ingredients that I see a lot, I think bakuchiol actually is one that I think it's a great ingredient, has good antioxidant properties, but it's always touted as a retinoid alternative, and There was one small study, like one that showed that if you used it twice a day, it was equivalent to whatever retinoid they put it head to head against, and I can't remember what it was. But the fact is, like, retinoids have been around for decades and their efficacy has been proven over and over and over again. So I see so much talk of like retinoid alternatives and bakuchiol and all of that, and also pregnancy safe alternative. Like, to say something is pregnancy safe, is bakuchiol? Probably, but it's never been studied, so you can't really say that.
Right, right. I mean, yes, it's so interesting. All of these brands that use the term like, what do they say, bioretinol or like a plant-based, I don't know. It's like, it's not retinol. Just say what it is. It's
Yes,
something
that drives me
different.
nuts. I don't know why they do that. It's so frustrating. I actually had a brand one time that like pitched me on this product. And I was like, oh, this looks so cool. And it said bioretinol. And I don't know what I'm thinking, like it's like some lab engineered retinol. I don't know. And I get the product and I'm like, wait, but there's no retinol in this. And then I realized there was bakuchiol. And I was like, oh, that's what they're doing there. This episode is brought to you by, well, me. Skinthusiast.com is your one-stop shop for all things skin, hair, and beauty. I have countless blog posts to educate you on all the skin concerns and most common skin questions I receive. We also have a complete skincare basics guide on our shop page, as well as the cutest In My Skin era crew necks. If you want to support the show, please head over to skinthusiast.com/shop, and don't forget to rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.
Now, do you, like, one of the things I feel like every time my agents send me like a brand deal from a skincare brand, they're like, all right, Brooke, we've already set up the call with the brand because they already know. I'm like, I have questions. Like, I want to speak to the people. Yes. And do they answer them? And because here's the thing, I think you and I are in a position where our audiences trust us. So if we are coming to them to say that a product is great, we have to do our homework and our research, because if we lose our credibility, that's everything. Our credibility is everything. So I take it very seriously. Have you been in situations where, you've been briefed on a product and you've actually found, okay, it's actually not a fit. This is not something I want to talk about?
All the time, for various reasons. There's, sometimes it either just doesn't work with my skin, or I start using it and realizing it didn't have the formulation I thought it did. Or I always ask a brand, like, please send me whatever data you have, especially when they have claims on their ingredients. Like, a lot of these brands will put new ingredients or proprietary ingredients in their formula to set them apart from other brands, and they have these claims. I'm like, okay, well, send me the data to back that. And oftentimes the data I get is like their about page or their science page on their website. And I'm like, this isn't clinical data. This doesn't help me. So I've had to back out of a lot of things. And I'm like you, I take it so seriously because there's so many aspects when it comes to trialing a product. Like, there have been products I've liked for my skin, but still haven't gone through with it because I just didn't think maybe it didn't reach a wide enough audience, or maybe the data wasn't there. So there's so many boxes that have to be ticked before we can talk about a product.
I think the thing people would also be so shocked to find out is sometimes brands will ask you to have like a 2-week turnaround time. Like, they will send you something. They'll send you something June 1st and say the live date has to be July 1st.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it's crazy. It's crazy out there.
I haven't even tried. I've just opened the jar. I can't shoot and edit. And it's like, I need to have time with the product. So now I've started asking for like and I feel like brands are doing this now. They're sending lab samples to people, which I kind of love. It makes me feel
it's
very
fun. Yeah.
insider. I'm like, ooh, I've got the lab sample. I don't need the final packaged PR mailer. If you want me to talk about something, send over the lab sample. I'm fine.
Agreed. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think the turnaround times are crazy, and there's many times where in that initial email, the first thing I say back is like, I require a 2 to 4 week period of trial depending on what the product is. And so many times the brands will come back and say, oh, well, actually, we only have this amount of time. And I'm like, okay, well, actually, I can't help you. I'm sorry.
Yes, I know. I said June 1st with a live date of July 1st. It's more like we send it to you June 1st and it has to be live like June 10th.
And do you feel like it's getting worse and worse? Like, I feel like this year it's been worse than ever.
It's been, I don't know. There are always exceptions, but yeah, I feel like sometimes the turnaround times are just like shocking and not possible. But I do feel like I am getting more and more lab samples of like just the unfinished, which is nice. Okay, so what ingredients do you feel like we should be paying more attention to?
So this is a really interesting question, because I feel like as these new age ingredients have come in, we've kind of pushed back a little bit some of the most important, which are always going to be vitamin C and retinol. Like, they're going to top any other ingredient you can use aside from sunscreens. Other ingredients that I do think are really helpful. This is good. Acids are always going to be helpful. AHAs, BHAs, always extremely helpful. BPO, which unfortunately has gotten such a bad rap this past year, benzoyl peroxide, but it's so incredibly effective for those with acne. So I'm hoping, that PR crisis is going to kind of slow down.
I didn't realize benzoyl peroxide was having an image issue. What happened?
Yeah, so I don't know if you remember a few years ago there's a lab called Valisure that will independently test certain products. And a few years ago it was the aerosol sunscreens. Then it was the aerosol, like other products, like they tested dry shampoo and things like that, and they found levels of benzene contaminant in those. And benzene is known to be a human carcinogen, so everyone was obviously up in arms about that. But it's a contaminant that happens in the process. It's not an ingredient that people are adding. So they tested a bunch of benzoyl peroxide products, and they found the same thing, that this contaminant benzene, which is harmful for humans, was found in many of the products. But when you look closer at their study, they were heating these products to extremely high temperatures. I think one scientist likened it to like leaving your sunscreen in your car in Austin, Texas for 7 days straight if the sun never went down. Like, it's just not these extreme temperatures. Like, unless you're putting your benzoyl peroxide in an oven, it's probably not going to be a problem. So it's unfortunate because this is like a tried and true savior ingredient for a lot of people with acne, and then people are afraid to use it. So hopefully we're going to get better PR for benzoyl peroxide sometime soon.
Yes. I mean, another ingredient hyperpigmentation is such a huge skincare concern, especially for people of color. Hydroquinone, which if you ask any dermatologist anywhere in the world what is the most effective thing to treat dark spots, they will tell you that it's hydroquinone, which of course you have to use under doctor supervision. You can't use it for longer than 2 weeks. But it works. And I feel like a lot of people spend a lot of time buying a lot of over-the-counter products and, using licorice root and, all of these things, which can be helpful to treat it. But if you really, if you have a scar, if you really have like a dark mark, I think, in my personal opinion, as a non-dermatologist, the best thing you can do is make a dermatologist appointment, let them see it, and then get a hydroquinone prescription.
I agree with you completely. I think we waste so much time and so much money on some of these brightening products and brightening ingredients that are helpful, right? They're going to help even your skin tone. But when you have, as you mentioned, true hyperpigmentation, maybe a hyperpigmentation left over from acne marks, or you have melasma, that needs to be treated. And the way we treat hyperpigmentation truly is with hydroquinone. There's a formula called Kligman's formula, which is hydroquinone, tretinoin, and a steroid. And that has been proven to be extremely beneficial for hyperpigmented skin. So that's one of my go-tos in clinic always.
What was that called again?
It's called Kligman's formula. Dr. Kligman is the one who first came up with it. So it's a combo of tretinoin, hydroquinone, and a steroid at various different, you can basically you write your own little formula. So if I want 0.25% tret, I can. If I want 0.1, I can. And you can just kind of mix and match exactly what you want in there. And it's highly, highly effective for hyperpigmentation.
You mentioned steroids, which is a bit of a segue, but I feel like I'm like a little bit afraid of topical steroids. And I'll tell you my experience. My son, when he was younger, and even now, sometimes he'll get eczema. He has eczema, which is common for kids. And I was prescribed from a dermatologist, of course, a topical steroid. I forgot what it was called. And it made it so much worse. And I ended up treating it with just like Aquaphor and just doing kind of other things. Have you had experience, like dealing with your child in eczema, or just any anecdotal feedback from patients you've seen suffer from eczema in terms of what's the most effective?
Yeah, there are some really amazing new treatments now. Some of them have been tested on even babies, depending on the prescription, but they're basically non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, just like we have ibuprofen that doesn't have a steroid in it, that can be used topically to help calm down that inflammation. There are a couple that are really, really effective. The problem is that they kind of tend to burn, so it can be hard to get your kids to use them until they'll burn until that skin barrier is better intact. But I personally had some eczema on my eyelids for a while, and it was the only thing that calmed it down. Of course, I didn't want to use a topical steroid if I didn't have to on the face. And they can be really effective. One common thing I see happen It made me think of it because you said that it got worse. A lot of people, especially here in South Florida, will have a rash and they'll go and treat it by themselves with a topical over-the-counter steroid, and they come back and it's so much worse. And we see that a lot with topical fungal infections. The steroids will make that infection worse. So if you're someone who's like out there and you're grabbing your steroid off the CVS shelf and you're like, why is my rash not getting better? That's definitely something to look into, and always tell your dermatologist that, like, I tried this over the counter cream and it got way worse. That when I hear that, like, for me it's like, okay, you're getting an antifungal always.
Yes. I also find that I'm always telling people, bring your products to your dermatologist appointment. If you've tried something and your skin got worse, or you're feeling like you've had a break, like, just bring that so that they can see the ingredients and understand what's going on. I feel like it's just a really helpful piece of the puzzle. Or take a picture and show it in the appointment. But I feel like it's just like the more information you give, like a detective, the more clues you have, the more helpful for your provider.
That's absolutely it. And I tell my patients, just bring in a whole bag of everything you're using. If you started using something before your skin went awry, or maybe your skin's good, you're just looking at what you can do better, bring the whole routine in. Sometimes people come in with like 30 or 40 products, especially like my influencer friends, my beauty editor friends. They have all these products, and we'll literally go through and make piles of like, okay, you can use this, you can't use this, you can use this, but only like in a few weeks when your skin's back to normal. You can start incorporating it 1 to 2 times a week. So I am big on people not buying more if they don't have to. So bring what you have, and I can tell you, like, I can make a routine out of what you have in your drawer that's good, that meets, the goals and also your skincare needs, like what skin type you have. And then even if it's something like, well, this retinol is great, but if you've already used a couple bottles of it, we can go to the next strength once this runs out. And that kind of helps minimize having to buy a ton of new products.
Yes. Well, you are such a great follow on Instagram. Everyone should go follow Amy. I will link to your Instagram in the show notes. But you do these deep dives, and I want to ask you some specific questions about different skincare treatments, products. Is it worth it or not? Let's start with dermaplaning. Is it necessary, and what does it really do for your skin?
Is it necessary? No. That's going to be my answer for most things. Like, most things are not necessary aside from sunscreen, but dermaplaning can be really helpful if you're someone, number one, of course, who has lots of peach fuzz. Before I started doing it for myself, I would, see it in photos, or like I would feel it when I was doing my skincare. So getting that peach fuzz off is always going to be helpful. Your skin's going to look more glowy because it's going to reflect light better, right? The light is getting straight to your skin. It's not having to go through all the peach fuzz. But it does also exfoliate that top surface layer of skin as well. I think people sometimes don't think of it as an exfoliation process. So you have to be careful with what other actives you're using while you're doing it during the same day or the surrounding days. But I absolutely think it's like 100% worth it to incorporate.
And how do you do dermaplaning? Do you do it on dry skin? Some people do it on wet skin. You can also cause some damage to your face and your skin doing dermaplaning incorrectly. So how do you approach it?
Yeah, so I actually used to be always a fan of you doing it on dry skin, clean dry skin, making sure that you're, if it's at night, you're double cleansing. Even in the morning, make sure you're cleansing before you do it. But now I've started incorporating oil into my routine. I use one from Barefaced they made it specifically for dermaplaning, which is cute. It's called Perfectionist. And it just helps, like, I don't break out after I dermaplane anymore. I used to get 1 or 2 little blemishes. Now I don't get anything. It makes the razor glide a lot smoother. And then you don't get that tight, irritated feeling after, which you can sometimes get. And I know you're like a huge fan of skincare oils. I would love to hear what some of yours are, if you don't mind sharing, because I love learning about new oils and what people's favorites are.
I love oils so much. So dermaplaning I don't do because I am one of these like hairless people. Like, there are people that are just hairless. Like, it's not lucky because I have no lashes. I've done microblading for my brows. Everyone always wants what they can't have. But yeah, I shave my legs like maybe like every 6 weeks, 2 months. Like, I'm like a hairless freak. I don't know. I inherited it from my dad's side, but I love oils. So I first started getting really into oils from a company that just sells pure oils, Mountain Rose Herbs. Do you know this company? They just sell, it's like a very hippie granola company. They sell just cold pressed oils. And I started with like jojoba oil. Then I learned about sea buckthorn oil, which I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. If I mix a little jojoba oil with sea buckthorn oil. So I made a lot of my own oils before I started purchasing the expensive oils and getting sent the expensive oils that I get sent now. So I feel like I have a very high bar. Right now, there's a face oil from Retrouvé that I am just in love with. It is so gorgeous. Do you know Retrouvé?
No, I don't.
Retrouvé is a very interesting brand. I had the founder on. Her family, her great-grandfather started Kiehl's. They sold Kiehl's in like the early 2000s, and then she just started making stuff for herself, and then she created her whole her own line, Retrouvé, and they make just really great quality products. So they have a really great facial oil that I love. There's another facial oil. I'm trying to think. I can't remember. It has SPF in it. I think it's from Undefined. It's an SPF oil.
Interesting.
Which is really nice. I don't know if have you tried SPF oils?
I've never used an SPF oil.
Even for body?
No. Actually, the only one I've ever been sent, I just got sent one from Vacation, the brand Vacation, and they have, I haven't tried it yet, but.
The Vacation SPF body oil is really good. It freaked me out because it looks like, the packaging, it looks like a baby oil. It almost looks like a tanning oil.
I think that's their whole thing, right? It's like that retro vibe, which I love. But yes, I was so scared by it at first.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I don't know about this. This is like very suspect. But then I was like, okay, you can see the ingredients. Like it's not a tanning oil. It's an SPF oil. But yeah, I'm really liking these new like oil SPFs too. I also have dry skin, which is why I love oils.
Me too. That's why I'm always, I love using body oils. I really don't use them on my face so often because I feel like by the time I layer everything, I'm pretty like well hydrated. But I do really like argan oil for inflamed skin. So I'll sometimes do that if I'm feeling irritated. And then I use this oil for dermaplaning as well.
This is the barefaced one you use?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, collagen, which we know as we get older, you are 33, is that correct?
Yes.
33. I'm 34, soon to be 35. What is it? Every year after 25, I forget the stat. You'll know the stat. Our collagen goes down. What's that stat?
Yeah, in your 20s, we say 25, but it happens at some point in your 20s, right? Everyone's a little bit different. Your collagen starts to decline by about 1% every year.
Okay.
Bad news.
That is reality. So you see collagen in skincare, but then of course there is so much of oral supplements for collagen now. You can put collagen drops in your water. You can get tablets that fizz up and, cute colors. And there is so many ways to ingest collagen. So are you a believer in orally ingested collagen?
Newly so, actually. I was very dead set against it for many years because there just wasn't really enough clinical data to support it. And these collagen powders are expensive. So I always told my patients, like, do what we know works. Like, we know vitamin C is an essential cofactor. So eat a diet high in vitamin C. Use your topical vitamin C, use your retinoid, use your sunscreen. Like, we know for sure those things will help with collagen production. But now there was actually a meta-analysis in the last couple of years. I can't remember the exact year that it came out, but it's looking like there is more and more mounting evidence that oral collagen can help the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles and aging skin. So I am newly a believer. I'm testing a few brands right now because number one, it's really important to me that it's third-party tested. And number two, it has to be hydrolyzed collagen peptides. That's what we know. That's what's been studied. That's what the evidence says might be helpful. So I'm testing a few brands. Actually, a friend of mine is launching one soon, so I'll be purchasing hers. I've gone through a couple, but I can't say that there's like a brand I'm obsessed with yet, and I haven't been consistent enough with it to say whether or not I see a difference in my skin, but the data says maybe it's helpful.
Yes, that's the other thing. I feel like when you have a really solid skincare routine, it's really hard to determine like, okay, this one thing made a huge difference.
It's so difficult.
It's really hard to say. Okay. Exosomes is a skincare topic I'm curious to talk to you about. What are they? What do they actually do for the skin? And how should people incorporate them into their routine? Yeah,
so exosomes are pretty cool. I think there's like a misunderstanding about them. They're basically like little vesicles that we can package ingredients into and help them deliver a little bit more easier to the skin. So a lot of exosome products will have things like peptides or other anti-aging ingredients. So like definitely not all exosomes are created equal. But in topical products, I think that there's a space for them. I think they can be helpful. I think we're just on the precipice of understanding what they do and how. But I think it's one of those things that if you're like someone who's already got your core routine down, which is the 3 ingredients I've been talking about over and over, that's definitely something to explore. Absolutely.
Okay. Another one that it's like, even me bringing this up now and us talking about it, I'm like, is this going to get too dry and boring for people? But it's so prevalent in skincare formulations now. Human growth factors. I feel like it's really hard to describe how they work, why they work, but it's something that I feel like every year is included in more and more skincare products.
Another ingredient like exosomes, where we're just kind of on the precipice of what they are capable of. I do think they're helpful, again, if you've already got your core routine down, and they basically help our existing cells to talk to each other a little bit better so that we can kind of produce our own collagen and elastin, which are the two proteins that we lose as we age. So they're similar to exosomes in that way, that they help our cells talk a little bit better to each other so that they can do their job easier. So it's a little bit different than something like how a retinoid would work, which actually like increases cellular turnover and increases collagen production and all of that.
Yes. I feel like the part that gets confusing is like how they are actually like harvested,
Yes.
right? Like because it can be done synthetically, or it can also be done like from your own biomaterial, correct?
Yes, and I mean most of these companies for obvious reasons are using like in a lab cell cultures that they create these ingredients from. I mean, for obvious ethical reasons.
Another topic that you've discussed, which I'm very excited about, because I just feel like, again, sometimes natural oils really are the most effective. Rosemary oil for hair growth.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Again, the data it's kind of like bakuchiol in that way, where the study that did show it was helpful compared it against like a lower percentage of minoxidil. We don't even, like, most people will recommend a 5% minoxidil, a higher percentage. The study that was done compared it to one of the lower percentages that isn't widely used in dermatology. And again, it was a small study. The data is like kind of wishy-washy. So it's not something I readily recommend for hair growth, but I think it's something if you want to try, can't hurt.
Okay, helpful to know. And when it comes to acne, which is, of course, something that, we're going to be dealing with for forever and ever. And I always tell people, when it comes to acne, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong with your skincare routine or your lifestyle. Like, acne is something that just happens. But when acne does pop up, what do you find are the most effective ways to treat acne?
So let's talk about the active lesion. So you have a pimple and you want to treat that pimple. My favorite things to use are ingredients like benzoyl peroxide or salicylic acid. I really love benzoyl peroxide for the more swollen, angry ones, and I like salicylic acid for the ones that are coming to a head or even a blackhead. I like pimple patches, but only the ones that are either plain hydrocolloid dressing or have a little bit of salicylic acid in them. But the ones with the sal acid and the micro darts, I've had a lot of patients with irritation and post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation from, so I usually stay clear of those. But you can't go wrong with a little spot treatment or a pimple patch. That being said, I think people often will use their retinoid as a spot treatment, and that's not an effective use of your retinoid. Your retinoid prevents new lesions from forming. That's how it works. That's why we say you need to be on it for at least 8 weeks before you're going to see a difference, because it has to interrupt the acne process. So retinoids are meant to be used all over the face when it comes to treating acne as a preventative measure. So they prevent the new pimples from forming. They're not meant to be used as a spot treatment.
Got it. Got it. And what spot treatments do you like? Like, if someone were to go, just what you can find drugstore and what you can find maybe like more high end.
Yeah, I love the different acne patches. They are just the plain hydrocolloid with a little bit of sal acid. There's no micro darts. I love those. Bubble makes some amazing spot treatments. They pulled their BPO one, unfortunately, because of everything that's been going on, but they also make a salicylic acid one. Those two, I still have my BPO. I still use it. Those two are amazing. I like the Kiehl's acne spot treatment. It's just a little one that you kind of put on your pimple and it dries down enough that you can put on your sunscreen and makeup over top of it. So those are the ones that come to mind.
Okay, great. Now I'm curious if, I know, we love makeup. We love a light makeup moment. Are you one of the people that tries to buy makeup that's skin friendly?
I don't, which I have a whole series on skin friendly makeup because I realize it's something that people are looking for, but I'm so good about my skincare routine that what's in my makeup doesn't concern me as much, right? It's more performance. However,
Same.
I do find
give me the NARS, give me the Pat McGrath.
Exactly.
Give me the pigments and the full coverage because I'm at the end of the day, I'm doing a thorough nighttime routine.
Yes, and that is so important for people to understand. What I will say is I gravitate towards a lot of the quote unquote clean brands because I'm a makeup minimalist, right? I wear a lot of minimal makeup. I like minimal coverage. So it's funny, people will often assume that I shop clean beauty because that just happens to be what a lot of my makeup is, but that's not intentional. And same with the skin friendly ingredients. A lot of the makeup I use happens to have those ingredients in them, but it's absolutely not why I buy it. But I did notice that people really had an interest in this, and it's becoming more and more common with brands, obviously, because there's a push from the consumer for ingredients, like skincare ingredients in their formulations. So I do have a whole series on like my favorite skin friendly makeup, and I find that it performs really well. The series does, and it's all makeup I do personally use. It's just so happens that that's not why I buy it.
What are your top three?
Oh man. So for complexion, I really love the It Cosmetic CC creams. They have two, well, they have multiple, but the two that I use is their original formulation, which is in the silver bottle. And it says a CC cream, but it's like a full coverage foundation. And then they also have the Nude Glow, which is the medium coverage. Those two, I get more compliments on my skin when I'm wearing those. And I always tell people, if someone says your makeup looks really good, I'm like, dang it. Like when they say your skin looks really good, I'm like, okay, I nailed it today. So those two. I also, this isn't part of my skin friendly series, but the Chanel, I forget the name of it, but it's the one that has the little micro pigments within the formulation in the solution. Oh my gosh, that's another one I get so many compliments on when I wear it. So complexion, I like the Kosas BB cream. That's a really good one too.
Yes.
Those are the ones
Kosas, I
that
feel
come
like
to
does a
mind.
good
Yeah,
job.
Kosas is great.
They do a really good job. Okay. In terms of the order of, I've started this series of, I show on Instagram like my nighttime skincare routine. And there's been some chatter in the comments about the order in which I layer my skincare on. Sometimes I do an oil last, sometimes I do an oil first because I really want those ingredients to hit my skin. Um, the thinnest to thickest rule, something that you talk about in terms of applying skincare products by level of density. Is this a hard and fast rule? Is there a correct order to layer skincare in?
I think there is a correct order when it comes to maximizing the efficacy of your products. Um, you're always obviously going to cleanse first. I personally like to put my eye cream sooner in my routine just because I like the delicate eye area, number one, to get those ingredients right there. But also, the eye cream will usually act as a little bit of a barrier for some of the other products that I'll be using. And then you're going to do, if you do like a toner or an essence, you can do that. And then you're going to do your serum, your moisturizer, and then your sunscreen. If it's at night, I do recommend doing the oil last because it will occlude everything else that's underneath it. So it can block penetration of other ingredients. If you're just going to use an oil, you can just use an oil. But if you're going to use it in conjunction with other products, it's usually best to put on last. Thinnest to thickest, I do think is a helpful rule. Is there ever an exception? Of course, but for the most part, it pretty much stands true. I find the most issue when people are like, well, what do I apply first? Like my hyaluronic acid or my vitamin C or my niacinamide. And it really matters the formulation. Like my vitamin C is a vitamin C lotion. So I'm not going to apply that before I would apply a serum. But if your vitamin C is a serum, it's best to go on first underneath the rest. So there's a lot of nuance with skincare.
Which vitamin C do you use?
I really like the THD ascorbate vitamin C from Revision. It's called C plus correcting. I'm pretty sensitive. I can sometimes use L-ascorbic acid, which is the most studied form of vitamin C. But most of the time I reach for the Revision because it's a lipid soluble form. So it penetrates without the need of like a low pH formulation, which is often what gives you that stinging and burning with L-ascorbic acid.
Okay, noted. I like the when you said lotion-based vitamin C, I've been using the Paula's Choice new vitamin C, which is an L-ascorbic acid. But
Oh,
it's
okay.
in
And a
lotion
lotion.
formula.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's nice. It's gentle, and it's so many times vitamin C has that really tacky, unpleasant feeling, which you can find a lotion-based version. So I'm like, why would I ever
Put
deal
up with
with
that.
that anymore?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've moved past this. Okay, I can't let you leave without talking about LED red light masks. I feel like this has been a very hot topic on the skincare streets. Is it effective? Is it not effective? They're expensive also.
Yes.
So I also understand people really wanting to know, like, is this worth my money? Does this work? What is your stance on these LED masks for at home? I think okay, let me just say, I feel like if you're going to a doctor's office and you're getting treatments, I think we all can agree that those are effective. They've been proven to be effective for like years. There's enough data to support that red light therapy is like good for your skin. My question is more for the at-home masks.
I absolutely think that we know they're effective. They've been studied. So we know that red light therapy is effective for reducing inflammation, for increasing collagen. So it's going to help with fine lines and wrinkles, anti-aging. It's used in medicine for a whole host of things. But when it comes to cosmetics, this is like kind of our main use of LED. I do think that at-home masks are effective. I think it's important that you look at the clinical studies from each manufacturer that you're potentially going to buy from, because they use different amount of bulbs, they use different wavelengths, they have a different irradiance. There's so many factors that go into whether or not it's going to be the most effective. So absolutely look at that. But I do think they're effective. They're expensive, and I think sometimes the issue comes with expectations. So it's not going to be Botox, it's not going to be filler, it's not going to erase wrinkles. It's more of a long game, right? We know the data is there. So if you want to start using one now for the next 10 to 20 years, I think it's going to be really helpful. I absolutely do. I have a face one, I have a neck and chest, and I have a hair helmet too, because we know that it also helps to support hair growth. So
Amy,
I look like a little robot in my house.
I need to get on your level. You're not using straws. You've got red light therapy for your head and your chest and your neck. Oh my gosh.
Oh
okay.
My gosh. Sometimes I just laugh at myself, but
yeah. And does your partner do all these things too? Or
no,
are they like...
he's lucky. I'm lucky if I can get him to slap on some of that CeraVe with SPF in it in the morning, you know? That's about it.
So you basically invest in doing this. You do it every night?
I'm at the point now where I'll do it 3 to 5 nights a week. But the max I ever did was like religiously 5. I never did all 7.
Okay. And you think it is worth it to do this because in the long run, your skin will be better for it?
Yeah. And I always say, like, when someone asks me if something is worth it, that's such a personal question, right? Because all of us have different budgets. It's definitely shouldn't even be on your radar if you're not, number one, using enough sunscreen every day and reapplying, and number 2, using like a good skincare routine. Like don't even worry about LED. There's so much more impactful changes you can make in your routine on a budget. But if you're someone who's like, I've already got my routine down pat, I'm really good about sun protection and avoiding the sun, then yeah, I do think it's something that is absolutely helpful.
Yes. And you know what? I'm happy you mentioned like that you do it for your neck and chest, because that has been an area that probably for the past 3 years, I've just spent so much more attention to, like really making sure that I'm bringing my skincare down to my neck and chest, really making sure that I'm putting sunscreen like all over my clavicle and chest area, all over my neck, reapplying sunscreen on my neck. Like that is so important, because if you just, are perfect with your face skincare routine, but then you don't pay attention to the rest, it's going to really show.
Yeah, we see it all the time. I see it with my skincare patients, but also my patients who do lasers and microneedling and all this stuff to their face. And then their face is getting younger and younger looking, and their neck and chest is getting older and older looking. It's a like dead giveaway, which there's nothing wrong with that, but we want everything to look, uniform and everything to look healthy. So yes, absolutely using everything. You don't have to go out and buy an expensive neck cream. Are there amazing neck formulations? Absolutely, but you don't need them. Just use what you already have. Bring it all the way down to your neck and your chest, and you're going to see a difference, especially if you haven't been using a lot there before. You'll see changes quickly.
Amazing. Well, Amy, thank you so much for this education. Skin Enthusiast, new episodes every which day of the week?
Tuesday.
Every Tuesday. So after you guys listen to Naked Beauty on Mondays,
yes,
go over to Skin Enthusiast and listen on Tuesdays. We've had so many similar guests, which I love, but I love the dedication to the information. Like that is what we need more of in skincare conversation, just like the hard, cold facts behind so much of these skincare claims. So I really appreciate you and all of the knowledge and fun you bring to the skincare field.
Well, I appreciate you and your guests. Every time you have a new episode, I'm like, damn, okay. Like that guest is like, I'm so impressed every time. So I really thoroughly enjoy your show. And I know my audience is going to love it too. It's like the perfect podcast for them to listen to.
Yes. I always say Naked Beauty. So many people tell me Naked Beauty is the only beauty podcast they listen to, because it's like we have beauty conversations. Of course, I like need to get everyone's skincare routine, and that's like my area of interest and passion. But I feel like we talk about so much more than just beauty and skincare. So I feel like it's like the perfect podcast for people that like love beauty, but also want a little bit more.
Absolutely. A lot of us who are passionate about beauty don't necessarily want to hear someone talk about it straight for 60 minutes, right? It can, even for us, it can feel like a little vapid. So the conversations that you have are just really incredible, and they go so much deeper, and You're doing great work.
Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you. I hope you love this conversation with Brooke. She is truly such a light and an incredible beauty resource. If you're hungry for more of her insight, make sure you check out her podcast, Naked Beauty. And if you love this episode, please share in your stories and tag us. I'll be picking a couple listeners to send over a box of skincare goodies. I'll talk to you next week, skin enthusiasts.